to switch over the comments, right? So that you see the YouTube code.
Welcome, everybody, to UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man. Tonight, I have two assistants helping me interview our very special guest, Alan B. Smith, who is the host of the Mystic Lounge. He is also a filmmaker, a MUFON field investigator in New York State, and he is also a UFO podcaster who has interviewed some very large names in the UFO community. So please welcome Alan B. Smith.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, guys.
Also, I want to introduce my friend Hnoss and my friend Odessa, who are going to help us out with the live stream tonight. Welcome, girls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They're helping out because I need a lot of help.
Hey, Hnoss, can you turn up your mic a little bit?
Oh, sorry. I think it was the angle it was pointed at.
Okay, yeah, that's better. All right. Tonight's topic is UFOs and the paranormal connection. Also, we're going to be discussing who is really going to be the mechanism for true UFO disclosure. Is it going to be Congress or is it going to be NASA? So that'll be part two. So the first question I got for you, Alan, is can you tell us a little bit about yourself, such as how you got interested in UFOs in the first place and how you became a field investigator?
Yeah, it started decades ago now when I was a kid, and I had a UFO sighting that initially got my interest in a way that went beyond just being entertained by Hollywood movies and sort of wondering about the universe. You know, in the 80s growing up, E.T., Harry and the Hendersons, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, all these movies, The Explorers, made impressions on me as a kid. And that fascination for like what could be out there and are they actually, here visiting, and we're just kind of unaware of it. Which, people don't talk about ET in that context often, but that's the beginning of the movie. You know, these beings that come, they kind of tiptoe around the humans. They're just doing their scientific work, and then their plan is to just take off. And so that's why that would explain why you get the occasional sighting, and they're mysterious, they're slippery, you can't really catch it, a long enough glimpse. And that kind of was the substrate. When I saw that UFO with a friend of mine, we were 12 years old, about 12 years old, in the back of a car driving down an old road. Like, it wasn't a dirt road, but it was like a rundown paved road that ran parallel to the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey. And that road was there was no toll booths or anything. So it's a little bit slower, but it was a really beautiful road, more desolate. You're in the Pine Barrens area, so you have these beautiful pine trees all around, and this night was a starry night, a clear night. And, we're looking out of the window, and I can't remember, which of us saw it first, but I remember just going, "Oh my God, look." And we're looking at the sky, and there what appeared to be two stars, but you could see they're kind of in the four of the star field. So a little bit closer, right? And a little bit brighter. They stood out. One of them in particular moved in such a way that was just unnatural. Like, it went from point A to point B. And then it did it again, went back, and then it went off up into the air, upper atmosphere, like a shooting star, but in reverse. So definitely these things weren't, a couple of birds or flies, and certainly no technology at the time that could explain what they were. They're technically unidentified flying objects, or UAPs. But that, when you see something with your own eye and it's unexplainable, and you still can't find an explanation for it decades later, it just drives you, the curiosity. But for me, that's also so much about the wonder too, the excitement of not knowing what it is, and the search for the what if in life. And that's, the what if is something I overlay over top of all of this. It's a part of all of our searching for the paranormal, cryptozoology, ufology, even just, conservative science. Like, what if, right? It's scientists often come up with hypotheses for something, and it starts with, well, here's some interesting data. What if this might be that? And then you kind of follow that road. And I think that's what we're all doing here.
Right. Okay, Hnoss.
Yes.
Take it away. You got a question for Alan?
Actually, what I wanted to say is I'm really glad that you shared that experience and how that got you to where you are now. Because the thing is that I actually see both sides of how people get involved in the UFO community represented there. There's a half of the people that their interest comes from the entertainment media that they were exposed to when they were younger. I'm a Gen Xer too. I was, all the same movies and everything. And I mean, we were just inundated with alien movies in the 80s. From Close Encounters on up to, Starman and
oh God, yeah, that's
Fire in the Sky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was just so much. But then the other half of the people that end up getting into the deeper side of the UFO community and wanting to be involved in research and stuff are the people who have had a personal experience, right? That ends up driving them into that position. So like, you're at the pinnacle of both with, how those things came together. So I like seeing that pattern there.
Thank you. Yeah. And for me, at least, I feel fortunate that my experience wasn't too close of an encounter. And that it was like just enough to really pique my interest, but not having to deal with the sort of trauma that a lot of close encounter experiencers have.
Although I gotta say, in regards to me, I wasn't traumatized. I saw something 50 feet away and 500 feet in the air. And I knew it was 500 feet in the air because the cloud cover was at 1,000 feet. It was halfway between the ground and the clouds.
Yeah.
And there were 6 objects. and they were rectangular with round edges, and they were on fire on the inside, and one of them was tumbling, evenly spaced, almost like a military spacing, but horizontal, not vertical. And they lasted for 25 minutes. And then one went out after another. But I'm going to tell you, I saw it with 12 people. And when I saw it, I was excited. I was screaming at the top of my lungs because I had verification of what I believed in. Okay, I had seen things off in the distance, like you're talking about, before, where things zip around. But they're so far away, I couldn't see anything. This was up close.
Yeah, we were just looking at your UFO video as well. That I can't just, without having haven't, like we've discussed it, and download the raw file, but just looking at it, I can't explain that in any conventional way. But for example, and I was telling you this the other night, on a recent case that I just closed for MUFON, someone had sent in an image, and I spoke to the witness, and they were so excited that they had finally caught a UFO, and it was a beautiful day out. There's a cloudscape. The sun was behind the clouds, so it was just gorgeous, and that's why he was taking pictures, just for that. And then he looked at the pictures later, and in one of the frames, because he took consecutive shots, there was this anomaly, and it looked almost, it was dark, gray, dark, tic-tac shape, and it looked like it had kind of like, how the tic-tac, they often were described as having some kind of appendage that would come out of it.
Right on the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, like Dave Fravor
described
that. Yeah. Right. Exactly, 2 of them. And so this had 2 appendages, but they were on the opposite side. Yeah, but the more I looked at it, and I talked to some other investigators, and we were like, it's probably a hot pixel, or a dropped pixel, something like that. But then I spent more time with it, and even though there were people who would know better than me generally, were thinking the same thing, that it was a digital anomaly, I kept looking at it, and I was like, this looks like there's too many pixels to make up this image, because you had to zoom in really close, right? And my instinct was like, no, this seems like something solid. I'm not convinced. Like, and I tried to convince myself. Like, I went online, and I was like Googling. Like, this has to be a digital anomaly. And then I went to Mark D'Antonio, who is the MUFON's head video and photo analyst.
Right.
And I ran it by him, and he was basically like, dude, I am 99% sure that is a beetle. It is a bug. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. It was right there. Like, the 2 appendages coming out were the wings. And then when you compare it to other insects caught in images, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that's what it was. It just, because it was like right in front of the sun, the glare of the sun, it distorted it just in a way that it's not like, how we used to see rods picked up on cameras. People used to call them rods, but they were actually just bugs flying by. Those are a little bit more definitive. So this was less definitive because of the light. But just having that confirmation from Mark made me feel like, okay, fine, we figured this out. But that's exciting to me, because we solved something. It's like, okay, cool, we can put that one aside. And then I look at yours, and I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what that UFO was.
Yeah, we're at a loss for it too, because there was no sound, none, and there was no wind blowing.
Yeah.
So, where I live, I'm in a rural community. So when it goes over, a plane goes over, even if it's way up high, I can hear the backwash after it passes. This had no sound.
Right.
Absolutely none. We called the sheriff's department, or I did locally, and I called the airport to see if they could give me any radar readings for that area at that time.
Yeah.
Nothing was in that area other than a couple planes that had passed earlier in the evening. This happened at 10 at night. So it was it's an unknown.
Did you check flight radar? Do you have flight radar 24?
Yes. And there's nothing there. This was really low, probably like 1,000 feet above the trees, not even that maybe. And what I'm going to say is I wasn't expecting to catch it. It was just something that happened, and we caught it, and it added to the change in my worldview or my world paradigm.
Right. Okay.
Because when I had that big sighting with 12 people, my world paradigm changed because I knew right away that we're not alone. I knew right away that everything I had read, everything I had seen, all the movies I had experienced as a kid, like you did, like Hnoss did, and Odessa, all of that was telling me that there is truth in what we're seeing. Right. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Congress knows already, and so does NASA.
Well, not every individual in Congress. That's the thing.
Right, not every. Right. Some aren't briefed. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, you and I were talking about this too. So I think that NASA is going to be the mouthpiece for disclosure. I think for a couple of reasons. One, it's a way of their saving face, because if the FBI, CIA, Department of Defense, some other agency makes this announcement, it makes NASA look like they're derelict in their duty. Their sole purpose is to explore space and find out if there's life out there. And if it was right under their nose and they missed it, and there's technological reasons why that actually literally happens, but for them to not have an excuse if that disclosure comes, then that calls into question what's their worth. That's some like serious budgetary thing. And then they're scientists too. So in the scientific community, all the other scientists, civilian scientists and so forth are going to look at all those people and go like, whoa, like your credibility just dropped, decibels. And so I think that they realized like, man, we need to step it up now because this is probably coming, sooner than later, and we need to be the ones to be involved in this. And I think that's okay. Like I think that if they're going to be the ambassadors, they're the best structured organization for that. They have a whole communications arm. They're really good at social media. They're very good at messaging, all of their missions. And they're really good at getting us excited about what they do. So I'd rather that than the UAP task force coming out and saying it. I'd love to see NASA come out, step forward, say it, similar to in the 90s when we had the microbial evidence that was found on the Mars meteorite.
Right.
NASA released a statement, did this thing, whatever. And then Bill Clinton came up to the podium, made an announcement, real evidence of life beyond our, it was like a big deal. But NASA still, they were the scientific mouthpiece that spoke first before the president. And so I think we'll see something very, very similar.
Okay, well, I do have that video clip that confirms what you're saying, and so I'm going to play it right now. Here we go.
NASA searches for the unknown in air and space. We are looking for signs of life, past and present. And it's in our DNA to explore and to ask why things are the way they are. In June of last year, NASA commissioned an independent study team to examine unidentified anomalous phenomena. We did so with a few goals in mind. First, to examine how NASA can use our expertise and instruments to study UAP from a scientific perspective. Shift the conversation about UAP from sensationalism to science. And to make sure that whatever we find or whatever we recommend to make sure that information is shared transparently around the world.
Transparency, transparently, that word was repeated so many times, and it's in the report as well.
Right.
Because that's what NASA is supposed to be, is transparent. Of course, there's plenty of controversy over the years as to anomalies in photos on Mars and ISS, International Space Station camera footage that they've been obfuscating or ignoring. But like, for instance, like some of that footage that we've seen on the space station, even if there's disclosure, NASA can still go back to that footage and go, well, gee, we just really thought that was space, that was debris, from
Right.
the boosters kicking on, and okay, sure, and they'll get away with it.
Yeah, they won't be castigated. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're the heroes first, as long as they're the first ones that come out and say, "Yay, we can confirm it. We found life," and we're getting there. And I was talking about this years ago, especially when they announced the James Webb Telescope. That's the cookie trail. That's gonna look to what they release regarding the discoveries on exoplanets. So, for instance, there's a planet about 120 light years away, a long way away. We're not going to get there, but it was K18b. It was like an Earth-sized planet, about 3 times the size of Earth, on a red dwarf star orbit. It had carbon monoxide, and that was detected in the air, like confirmed. That, not if, but confirmed. But the other tantalizing piece of that evidence, which was, I think, totally buried in the lead of that release, was that they had preliminary detection, through their spectro analysis, that there was dimethyl sulfide, which dimethyl sulfide is only, as far as we know, on Earth, it's only produced by like marine algae.
So that would insinuate the possibility of an ocean.
Right. And so in the report, they talked about how they're going to, follow up on that and analyze that. So that's like, for me, that's it's not like a drip tease like they already know. I think they're really truly discovering this in real time. But I think that they start peppering this in. First thing, they're going to warm everybody up, and they're going to be like, there's definitely life on whatever exoplanet. And then there'll probably be another one until it starts becoming like normal, normalizing that off-world, out of our exosolar system, solar systems have life residing in them. And then once they do that, then they can start turning the microscope back on us. And you'll see these things kind of parallel as we get closer and closer, and it'll be this kind of nexus point. It's a big buildup of disclosure. At least that's where I'm at, optimistically, but I'm not so optimistic like Stephen Bassett, who I absolutely love, and I his enthusiasm is so contagious and important, because we need someone like that to like really bolster and keep us uplifted and energized and optimistic about disclosure, and to keep the pressure on as well. He's thinking like 2 years, and I'm thinking more like 5 years. I think that's where we're going to be. It's probably going to be 2030, let's say, at the latest. But I think that would make sense to me, where we get the official. We know that these things are not from planet Earth. Yeah.
I got to say this: Tim Burchett, representative of Tennessee, congressman from Tennessee. I really think that he is working hard also behind the scenes in regards to disclosure. And he is a champion for our efforts at a grassroots level for the amateur experiencer out there who has seen things. Because I really believe, and I know that Hnoss agrees with me, and perhaps even Odessa, that a lot of disclosure is going to come from the people that are out there that are not military, that are not NASA, that are not congressional, that are actually out filming things and catching things and experiencing things with good equipment, you know. and spreading the word. That we already know. I already know.
Mm-hmm.
Hnoss already knows, and I'm pretty sure Odessa already knows that aliens do exist. Alien life exists.
Wait, has everyone here? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead.
Has everyone here seen, witnessed a UFO or a paranormal entity?
Big yes on personal experience with those that are not originally from here.
Wow.
That's almost exactly how I would have worded it. So
Okay.
that's what she said.
Okay, high five.
Do you put yourself? Oh, you're in the same room. That's awesome.
I thought I'd sneak that by you.
That was so cool. That was very metaphysical. So did you have abductee experiences or just close encounter?
No, it's part of the stuff that takes a whole nother show, a whole nother direction, because it's very complicated
Yeah. it's
Gotcha.
pretty complex,
Well, that's-
to
honestly.
get the explanation there. But
Yeah.
I'd love to chat with you more about that.
Oh, I'd love to. Did you see the documentary Half-Light?
I tried to find it. It said it was on Tubi with
Tubi,
ads, and I went on there and I couldn't find it.
Okay. Oh, really? So yeah, if you just search Half-Light on Tubi, it should just pop right up.
There
But,
is a movie called Half-Light, but it's not the one with the
Demi
same.
Moore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually both will pop up, like Demi Moore's movie and then our documentary. But the documentary covers like the wide gamut of paranormal and ufological experiences. You know, those consciousness contact experiences with entities, extraterrestrials, non-human intelligence, whatever you want to call it, and sort of the intersection between that, you know, ghost, near-death experiences, shadow people, and common UFO sightings, and how all of that sort of feeds who we are spiritually.
Also, you came out with another movie called Born Equal.
Yeah, that was our first documentary. That was in 2012, and we followed the day in life of a Christian lesbian couple up in Rochester, New York. And the point of that was to just kind of show the world like how normal, not that you have to be normal, right? But that these are just happen to be normal people, quote unquote normal, going to their jobs, they have kids, they have a house, they go to church, they go shopping, they have dinner, just basic like everyday life. Just that's it. And how their church, embraces LGBTQ people, and the amount of like love and support that you see there is beautiful. And then we also cut to interviews with different religious authorities that have their own interpretations of or understandings of their religion, like everything from Muslim, Sufi, to Wiccan, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, atheism, even. So the whole idea was to be like, to speak to the power of love above anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight that for you because you
thank
said to me earlier that no one's ever talked about it or even brought it out before. So you've seen it here on UFO Man.
That's first. The first. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Okay.
One thing back in the day, we had done like some interviews on like podcast radio before YouTube was doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
But it's been a while. Yeah.
Okay. I do want to show one thing. I saw a document from Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
The office that was set up to supposedly release information and create transparency. And it's suggestions for NASA.
Yeah.
And here it is. Recommendations for NASA: unclassified crowdsourced data following a prescribed format, large-scale ground-based scientific instrument evaluation, Earth sciences satellites, intentional vice coincidental collection, peer-reviewed parameterization of advanced capabilities not yet engineered, archived scientific anomalous data review, distribution of sightings, and foreign partnerships.
Right.
So that's a wide spectrum of what NASA's working on.
Yeah, it is. So here's something that's interesting that that last bit, they're saying basically like a retroactive study of astronomical phenomena, right? So in all of this, I was reading through it, and I'm like, huh, something's missing here, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I was reading through the NASA report, and NASA speaks to once again, appropriate data collection, curation, and distribution are paramount. NASA, with its world-leading experience in these aspects, is well positioned to play a leading role. Engaging the public is also oops, I lost it. Sorry. Engaging the public, including open source smartphone-based apps that simultaneously gather imaging data and other smartphone sensor metadata, and multiple discipline citizen observers worldwide. Well, what they talk about here is that they need they're saying there's no currently standardized system for all this data, so that they have to create that. What that leaves out is decades of data collection from MUFON, NICAP, UFOS, all these, right? And I'm totally sympathetic to, if you're going to use an AI specifically, right? You need to have an exact, formulation. But it doesn't mean you ignore all the old stuff. And I thought it's a little bit of a disingenuous, because that they're aware of MUFON. That they're aware of these other nonprofit organizations, individuals that have been collecting data. And yes, the standards are different. And even MUFON standards have changed or expanded over the years and have improved. But it doesn't mean you discount all that. And the fact that they didn't even mention the civilian work that's already been done, like all the amateur work that's already been done. Like
there's
a lot.
a big reason for that, though. So like when you look at that, I think what they are doing is that they're folding that information in under evaluation of archived information, right? They're trying to make it be a circumstance where they take credit away from the ufology community for all the work it has been doing all this time. And they just fold that into, we're going to get your data, we're going to process that, but we're the ones that are taking credit for all the data and the information that moves forward.
Right.
Because the United States government has declared that it's going to be in command of this information being released to the entire world, right? So in order to maintain that image of being the ones that can handle that responsibility for the entire planet, they can't give away that a lot of the information they're working with came from independent citizens that were ignoring their claims there was nothing the whole time.
Right. So Tim, can you put that back up, that image up? Because it was the wording that kind of, because it says archive scientific anomalous data review. So NASA could review astronomical and atmospheric data holdings against the parameterized UAP target package to look for anomalous signatures, but it specifically uses the word astronomical and atmospheric data. And so what worries me is that it doesn't mention civilian data. It doesn't mention specifically UAP or UFO data. So Hnoss, I think you're right. I think they're probably going to be looking at that. But it sounds to me a little bit like kind of how Arrow has framed the investigations of UAP from 2004 moving forward. I just kind of get that impression that it's like, starting from now, right? We're going to be the ones that'll be investigating UFOs, and we'll figure this out.
Although I got to read that first part, which is here. Unclassified crowdsourced data following a prescribed format, imagery from smartphones is of limited value given the resolution of the cameras, but NASA could take lead on evaluation of crowdsourced metadata.
Yeah, they definitely need money for that.
Yeah.
And but that's cool. That's the sort of thing that MUFON has been striving for and continues. I mean, their laboratory, now we have a spectrometer that can do really good analysis of materials, and that's it. It's a non-profit organization funded by private donations and memberships and that sort of thing. So that's crowdsourcing in a sense.
Right.
And so we've already been doing that, and that's why I don't like the idea that they're not giving a little bit of credit. Like
Yeah.
like for instance, we see online almost every week some amateur astronomer that took a picture of some supernova or black hole or whatever it might be in the galaxy, and they get like celebrated for that. Oh, great, amateur work. That's awesome. But we never, like, the official never credits the amateur investigator.
Right.
I think that's where I'm like, come on, guys. Like, who do you think your cheerleaders are? It's us. We're the ones that are out there. Like, to me, it's not about personal credit. Like, oh, so and so did this. So just give like a general nod to this organization or to the general public for doing good work. Thank you guys so much. But once they get that app out, whatever that app or apps might be, then that's what they're saying, right? That they're going to employ the citizenry to participate in that. So at least they've got that going. So that's good.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say about NASA, okay, I'm just hoping that the bureaucracy that surrounds the organization doesn't tend to suppress some of the information coming out. That always bothers me because of federal funding, they have to follow certain guidelines to get their funding, which then could in turn suppress some of the information. So I'm looking for a free flow of information, kind of like what we do as podcasters, yourself, myself, Hnoss, and Odessa, how we're trying to pass along the information to the general population and anybody who's watching online without having those regulations or restrictions holding us down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're doing our job. We're doing our due diligence. We're doing our investigative work. We're interviewing people with knowledge, such as yourself, Alan, and we're trying to get that information out there. And as you were saying, we're not getting any recognition for our work, and there has been decades of that work.
Right.
So I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the recognition is not so much for the sake of recognition.
Right.
It's to recognize the actual data. That to me is the most important thing, because by recognizing the data, you're automatically recognizing the work that citizens and amateurs and independent organizations have done. What about the work of Project Blue Book?
Right.
Right. I mean,
Project Sign,
Grudge, like all of that. Let's not talk about the Condon report, but
go ahead, Hnoss.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that for me, the purpose behind recognition is so that the larger population can be aware that those recording tools are available to them.
Right. Yeah.
That's the primary importance. That's the reason that we need the public to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And MUFON has been very much suppressed for decades, having their voices silenced in the media and in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And behind that whole system, it's that you've got the tools in place, and the more support you get, the greater the tools you can develop. And that's what threw me off. I didn't know Tim was going to put that infographic up on the screen, but I actually have a note here on a Post-it of something I was going to talk to you about for MUFON, which was actually the development of an app that would serve those purposes through MUFON, through privatization, instead of relying on the government for that.
Well, there was communication between MUFON and I believe the UAP task force. So I think there was an effort there. I don't know what's going to come of it. I do hope that something comes of it for sure.
Okay, we do have a question from the chat room I have to address. Second Star Survival said, with everything going on with our government coming out with not 100% proof of these crafts, why are we allowing the government to harness these studies of information? If we can't trust the government in daily issues, why should we trust the government with any information from other organizations, especially with alien technology?
Yeah, so I think that we have to employ them no matter what. Any part of the government there's going to be something that is maybe secretive or something that is faulty, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't use the government as well, because that's a huge resource. And also from a sociological standpoint, if the government is taking this seriously, which from all perspectives right now it is on all fronts, from the military to private organization, technically private organization like NASA, funded by the government, right?
Right.
And then you have congressional members that are interested in this. You have the Department of Defense. It just goes on. There's a lot of serious interest in this. So I see we need to keep that going perpetually. And they also have resources that we don't have. But then the question is, okay, so what if they lie to us? That's where the whole transparency thing comes in. And Bill Nelson mentioned that so many times that if they're not transparent, it's gonna really come back at them. And and the FOIA requests are going to be 24/7, going in all along the way of their investigations. So the apps, if the apps are done right, like so for MUFON, for instance, when someone reports, they can release their it's a waiver to release their information, copyright free, public domain, so that MUFON can use it and show it and that sort of thing. And that's a choice that they have. So I would hope that the app would have something like that too. So somebody catches a UFO or whatever and uploads it up there, and then they go click public domain, and anyone who has that app or website can see what's been posted.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. And then, kind of like on Reddit, you can post something with, the raw data and the metadata and all that stuff. And then anybody can look at it. So that would be true transparency.
What
so
do you
yeah,
think,
NASA's going to be I'm sorry, Tim.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say NASA will be the one that has the AI technology and the funding to do deep analysis of it. But the rest of us can still do our own analysis on individual cases, and that's the future, I think. Hopefully, we'll see.
What do you think, Odessa?
I think having the funding for the AI and for the in-depth analysis is crucial, for sure. It's definitely something that's going to need to be done. But I really like the concept of having a public domain open source app for people to go ahead and post things that they see, that they catch. We've got so many amazing cameras on our smartphones now. People are catching stuff left and right. There's no way to report. There's no way to put that information forward for it to be analyzed. And I think having that would fill a really big void. And I think it's overdue. It needs to happen. I'm ready.
Right. And the other thing was, by not giving a nod to the civilian organizations, like MUFON, it tells me that they're not offering an olive branch to independent field investigators. Because think about it, you have thousands of boots on the ground that you can employ, if you work in tandem with MUFON or another organization. Like, they're there. These are people like myself doing it for free. It's a volunteer. It's not going to cost you anything at all. So why not invite them to the party and say, hey, you know what? If we're going to work with MUFON, or if we're going to work with NewFork or whatever, and NewFork's actually pretty much run by one person, but here, these are the new standards and protocols. So when someone reports something, this is what they need to fill out, and try to come to a common ground on that. Because as smart as the people are at NASA, there is something to be said about experience. So people who have been field investigators or online sleuths, investigating ufology for years and decades, they're going to have insights and a manner of understanding investigation that NASA is still novel to. Here's a really it's a very simplified example, but in Skinwalker Ranch, there was an episode where Linda Moulton Howe came on, and I was like, oh yeah, Linda's going to be regular. Of course, they didn't make her a regular, but I was really happy she was on there. And they were trying to set this thing up where they put, I think it was one of the llamas or alpacas, whatever it was, in a cage to like contain it and protect it, because there had been these kind of abductions and attacks and different things, right? And so, and they were monitoring it to see if it would attract anything. And the first thing she did, she looked at it and she looked up. She's like, there's nothing to stop it from leaving through the air. And they were like, oh, like that's like just a really simplified example of someone who's been doing this for years. For her, it was like instant common sense. She didn't even phase her. Like, duh, like we're talking about UFOs here. Why didn't you cover the top? And they're all like, oh yeah, good idea. So I think you need people who have been doing this, and that includes not just, and I say amateur, I mean, independent investigator, which includes a layperson like myself or people with doctorates and PhDs. There's so many people out there with skill and resource and talent that can assist in this. Because all right, here's the coolest thing. I just loved this phrasing. So Nicola Fox, who's the associate administrator, she said, UAP is one of planet's greatest mysteries. Not a big mystery, not a curious mystery, not an anomaly. Greatest mystery. That's like ontological level of, verbiage. Like, what is God? Like, why are we here? That's huge to apply a term like that to a UFO or UAP, which traditionally has been, well, we don't really know what it is. It could be, the unidentified weather balloon or flock of birds, or maybe it was a stealth bomber or something like that. But that's not what she said. She chose that word because she was reading off her notes. She chose that. She wrote that down and decided that's the phrase that I'm going to use. And of course, she followed up with it, with like, well, but of course, it's because we have limited data that we don't really understand what these things are. Well, that's fine, but like, the giant squid was limited data,
right.
But like, it's the greatest mystery on the planet Earth. It was just, so that to me, the romanticizing that they infused in some of their language tells me they know. Like they know, and so that's why they have to start employing terminology like this now, so that in 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, when they're like, yeah, we figured it out, we're not all, they didn't just flip on a dime,
Right.
because if they do that, then that reveals that they've known all along, and they're just pretending now, right? So they're trying to like do the track work so that everyone's kind of acclimated to NASA doing work to understand what the UAP is, so that it's more believable. Like they only discovered it in the last 5 years, and I think the general public, by and large, will buy that, and that's okay, as long as we get disclosure. So,
but I have to say this in regards to what you and I were talking about prior to this live stream, in regards to NASA knowing.
Mm-hmm.
They already know that alien life exists because of astronaut encounters, especially that one where the astronauts were going to the moon and a craft was following them and then pulled up alongside of them, and they actually saw creatures inside the object, and it was broadcast on a side radio band where some ham radio operators picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to say is they already know.
Yeah.
They just don't know where they're from or what their agenda is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody knows that, except maybe Hnoss.
Yeah. And then, now I'm curious about Hnoss's story. But they're priming us. That's why they're using language like that, because they already know. They have to set themselves up so that it's not like a sudden shock. So yeah, their job is to understand this phenomena, and that's what they're going to be the ones to disclose it. But there is the other side of this phenomena, which is the sort of sociological, anthropological, and spiritual side to all of this, because yes, the UAP are measurable, but
Yeah.
like David Grush says, they're non-human intelligences, right? He's using that term because he doesn't want to make the presumption that it's extraterrestrial,
Right.
because people have other kinds of experiences that are somewhere in between
Right.
the physical and a conscious mind, or dreamlike states, that kind of in-between world, the liminal world where these things seem to emanate from, or at least some of them do. And that's a whole nother thing, because they've been around for a long time, a really long time. And I, on my Mystic Lounge podcast, I sign off with "Live in the Mystery," because for me, not knowing things makes life exciting.
Yeah.
And the seeking, the journey. If I can create one of the great philosophers of our time, Aerosmith, life's a journey, not a destination.
Yes.
Right.
Great.
And
Well,
so, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hnoss. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, that really earmarks in on how society has been stagnating, because the entirety of human history since they deviated from the rest of the great apes, humanity has been explorers.
Mhm.
And it's only really in the last 150, 200 years that the exploring is done.
Mhm.
Right? We've got the planet mapped out as far as what people intended to explore, with land.
Right. Yeah.
And now what's left to them is that those who have the wanderlust to be explorers don't have that power in themselves to go out and find that new frontier.
Yeah.
And that's where this all comes from for me, from the mammalian instinct of exploration. Those that get this bug and say there's still more that has to be found. I need to find out where it's
There's
at.
so much more that people don't realize. People live in a box, personally. That's my impression. They go to work, they get up in the morning, go to work, come home from work, eat supper, have a cup of coffee, kick back, watch TV, play with the kids, go to bed, and then repeat. That's their life. And I've had people tell me, why are you looking up at the sky? You should pay attention to the things around you. You're going to miss the things around you. But I'm also going to miss what's going on in the universe, which is why I study the sky. And it's also why I talk to many different people online to learn and to spread the news. That's my drive.
Yeah, to paraphrase, I can't remember the exact quote. John Keel is something like, stare long enough into the abyss, and you're looking at the back of your own head. And so, as long as you can oscillate, right, between getting lost in that mysterious wonder, but also check back into the reality and actually live and love, the people around you. I think that's the balance. I think it's true that many come to this subject with like a spiritual deficit, or being someone from recovery, like a donut-sized hole in your spiritual life, and you're just trying to fill that. So some people will do that with drinking or drugs, and others will do it with religion, or some people actually do that with the paranormal. And that's where oftentimes we see people, they embellishing and then creating a fictionalized extensions on their own original experience, so that they can make that world bigger and more meaningful to themselves, because they need, there's something inside them that they need to fill. On the flip side, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the paranormal. Years ago, when I was like really in the depth of dealing with addiction and depression and anxiety, I'd go through these phases where I was like trying to hide it from the world, keep it all inside, right? Ashamed of who I am, but I would listen to Coast AM religiously, and hearing these guests, even when it was on the infotainment side, hearing these guests tell these stories of alleged real experiences or more embellished experiences, or just truly speculative and metaphysical ideas, like the rainbow spirit body and that kind of thing. Like, and that might be true, I don't know, but like I love listening to it, because like, what if? And when you're kind of in that state of despair, having something that is just kind of like knocking on your door, like, dude, you don't really know what this is. Like, you don't know what life is. You don't know what happens really when you die. So keep going, because why give up on something that you don't even know what you're giving up on? Why check out? Like, you don't even know what you're checking out of. So that kind of just kept that frequency in the back of my head vibrating. And so my enthusiasm and love for paranormal, I'm not a ghost hunter, but I appreciate others that do, and I love those fields. That, to me, it's like, it gives me a vibe, and it makes me feel alive, and that's why I can't stop podcasting. I can't stop researching it. It thrills me. I love it.
Yeah, me too. I love it as well, and I've learned a lot from Hnoss. So when you get a chance to talk to Hnoss, please do. Odessa, let's go around the panel and make last comments. Hnoss?
My final thought on here is looking back at the United States government, and the only time we've gotten disclosure with relation to anything of significance from the U.S. government was when information first came from the grassroots. Mm-hmm. There are people with information that came forward, started collaborating together, and then the public created the pressure. Mm-hmm. And it was that pressure on the government that forced the disclosure. So it was just, their disclosures are always confirmations of information that's already came out, instead of them leading on the forefront. And, with the work of the ufology community and MUFON and all that, I think that's where the focus essentially ends up needing to come from, is not asking the government for disclosure, but saying, we're going to keep pushing closer to an uncomfortable truth you don't want us releasing to the public in an uncontrolled manner. So it's time for you to step up and do a better job of streamlining the process.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. And I would add, we were talking about this earlier, just a historical example that I like to share. So in 1938, there's the Sutton Hoo archaeological discovery of the biggest Anglo-Saxon archaeological find in history to this date in 1938. That find was because of Edith Pretty, who owned the land that she saw what she believed were mounds that were. She looked at them. She's like, I don't think these are natural. Well, all of these certified archaeologists of the day said, no, I'm sorry, Missy, but you're wrong. That's, go back to, being a woman and go indoors and, carry on your way. And she was educated, boarding school education, not university, but educated. She had experience traveling around the world with her parents when she was younger, and had experience, on site of archaeological sites. And she's like, no, there's something here. And so she pushed and she pushed and she pushed, and she finally found an quote unquote amateur, but I mean, the guy is like in the field constantly. He's essentially a world-class archaeologist, Basil Brown. She hired him to come and excavate the site, and lo and behold, they made this hugely important discovery. And it took convincing. It took actually showing them the absolute proof before they would investigate.
Yeah.
And so that's, even if NASA is doing a serious investigation now, which I hope that they do,
Yes.
I don't think that they're going to have as many boots on the ground as we should. So everyone listening, like, maybe on some smaller scale or whatever, but you could be that kind of like Edith Pretty. You could be the person out there that's like, I'm going to go and do this myself, and I'll offer my findings, and and we'll see. We'll take it from there. So that's where, don't let the thought that you're not a scientist, that you're not an engineer or a PhD or a pilot or what have you, mean that you're not qualified.
Right.
If you take it seriously and you look for standards that have already been formulated, like for me, that's why I joined MUFON. It just made it easier. There are people who've been doing this and passing it down through decades. So I just encourage everybody, like, go out there and pursue it, man. And it's just fun too. It's really thrilling. Yeah.
Yes. I pursue it through a virtual way.
Yeah.
Due to my limitations. But Odessa, last comment?
Gosh, I really wish we'd been able to spend a little bit more time on the Paranormal Connection. I was really looking forward to that, but I think it's been a great chat. Thank you so much, Alan, for coming and sharing your experiences. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed our evening. So
yeah, me too. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah.
We will definitely have you back on again, Alan, so that we can pursue the paranormal question.
Sure.
And maybe the question of usage of psychedelics to access different dimensional realms and different experiences that way.
You want me to call my guy, or?
Well, I'll get a hold of you soon, and we'll reschedule you. Okay.
Okay.
But you're more than welcome to come back on anytime. We want to thank everybody on the panel. Hnoss, Odessa's work in the chat room. Thank you, Odessa. And Alan B. Smith, especially, for coming on our show this evening. I have to give a shout out to Tom Reed for booking Alan B. Smith on our show. And I want to let everybody know he's starting a new channel and a new podcast. And we at the UFO Man channel wish him all the best. So from all of us on the panel and to all of you in the chat room, thank you for coming. We will see you next week on the 28th. And you have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Hang out for a couple of minutes.